In this video, I'm going to show you how to tile a design. Tiling a design is handy when you, for example, if you only have the 12 by 12 cutting mat, but you want to create a design that is bigger than the cutting mat. For this example, we'll say 22 inches wide. I'm using this particular shape because I'm actually doing a project for my sister with this shape. She wants these stars cut out of vinyl to place on a wall in her home, and she wants them in different sizes, the biggest one being 22 inches. So that's why I'm using this particular shape. Now, to make tiling easier, I like to turn on the grid and set it at 1 inch. And with the shape selected, I'm going to use my alignment menu and center it to the page. I'm going to start this project with the design small, and later I can resize it as needed. To make it easier for me to see as well as easier for you to see, I'm going to zoom in on the shape. You can see by my selection handles, the shape is already selected. I know this shape is grouped, so the first thing I need to do is ungroup it by selecting Break All. And now you can see that each of these pieces are separate and not grouped together. Put that piece back where it goes. Now, to create a tile for a design, you're going to need to edit the design. Open up your editing toolbar and select the second scissor shape, which is to cut a straight path. Now, it's important to note that all of the shapes in your design must be closed shapes. This tool will not work with open paths. You'll know if your shape is open or closed by whether or not you can fill it with color. If it fills with color, it's a closed shape. If it will not fill with color, then it's an open shape or an open path. All of my shapes on the screen are able to be filled with color, so I know that they're all closed shapes. So just a little recap, bring your design into Fun Time, center it to the page, turn on your grid line, and zoom into the shape. Make sure that your group has been broken by going to Shape, Break All. Go to your Edit menu and select the second scissor. Point your mouse just outside of the design. Click and drag across the shape to the other side of it and release the mouse. Now at this point you're going to lose your color effects in your layering because the layers have been changed. But if you go to wireframe, you can see that all of the shapes are still there. Again, with the second scissor tool, I'm going to start at the top of this design. I'm going to click, drag to the other side of the shape, and release the mouse button. Now, given that I've used this tool before, I'm more familiar with it, so it's a little bit easier for me to know where the shapes are going to cut and what it's going to do to them. But basically what I've done is I've cut this design into 4 pieces. And with my selection tool, I can select each of those tiles and drag it away so that you can see what I've created. And now you can see that I've put that into 4 different layers or 4 different tiles. Now the next thing I want to do, and I'm going to turn off wireframe so that you can see it. I'm going to drag a selection around my first group of shapes, and over on the left side I'm going to click on this icon, Group with Transparency. Now that automatically redoes the different pieces and the layering order so that you can see exactly what your piece will look like after you've cut it and weeded it. And I'm going to repeat that group with transparency for each section. Now each of these sections, all of the pieces are grouped together, so if I click on just one piece, it selects the whole group. And now that I've got everything lined up with transparency, if I fit these pieces back together, and I won't be able to get them exactly precise, but now you can see that the appearance is of the original design, but it's been tiled into sections. Now that I've finished tiling that design, I can resize it by selecting all of the pieces together. Going to my transformation window, I'm just going to select width and change the width to 22 inches and click on apply. And now of course the design is bigger than my cutting mat. But now what I can show you with this enlarged is that when I'm ready to cut this design, I can select the parts of the shape that have been tiled one at a time, put it on my page, which represents my cutting mat, and I can cut this section of the design. Next, I would cut the next section of the design, and then repeat for the remaining sections. Now, you have a couple of options. You can copy and paste each of these sections to a new page, or you can keep all of these sections on the same page. Keep in mind though that if you keep all of these sections on the same page, that you have pieces that are off of the cutting mat. And if you were to open the cutting control panel and click on cut, your gazelle will try to cut everything, even these pieces that are not on the cutting mat, and it's not able to do that, so it's going to get confused and it's not going to cut, or it's going to go a little crazy. To avoid that is very simple. When your cutting control panel opens, drag a selection around the part of the design that is on the cutting mat, place a check mark for selected object, and then click on cut project, and only this part of the design will be cut. Notice that the other pieces have disappeared. When you close the cutting control panel, all of your pieces will be just as they were originally. Now the other option you have to keep all of these pieces on the same in the same file, but not have to do selected object, you could also select these sections of your design one at a time and just change the stroke color so that each one has a different stroke color. Then when you open the cutting control panel, my red piece is on the mat, so I'm going to select a cut by color, and when I select red, these other pieces of the design will seem to disappear. But when I close the cutting control panel, all of these pieces are just like they were when I left them. Now, another thing that's neat about cutting by color is I can actually put all of these pieces on top of each other right on the page. And of course they look a little screwy at this point. You can't even tell what the design is. But when I open my cutting control panel, I can tell it to cut only the green or the black or the blue or the red. Clear as mud? Okay. That's it for this lesson. If you have any questions, just come to the Gazelle Owners Forum and post